All right, everybody, hop on your camels or elephants and crack open that Book of the Dead because it's time to rewind. Well, you know what you're giving me right now? You are definitely with the red and the red lip. You are giving me Courtney Shane, Rose McGowan from Jawbreaker right now.
Oh,
So you could
high compliment
easily,
of the highest
right?
order.
You could easily be her. I know that maybe might not be obvious for some people, but I feel like maybe all you have to do is just hold a big Jawbreaker. But like, you definitely could pull that off for Halloween
And
one
kill the
year.
teen dream. Mm-hmm.
Right? Exactly. Maybe
Love
you're her from
it.
prom. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
With the
Got it.
mascara, and she's like,
With the
ah.
yeah. Oh,
Nothing shocks me.
right? But as an adult, because I never and I still don't really find him all that attractive as Han
He
Solo,
reminds me too
in his
much of my dad. Like,
oh,
I can't.
that's so funny. So you're like, that just
He's
does not
just
work for
grumpy
me.
like my dad, like,
Yeah,
no.
that's so funny. I love that. But as an adult, oh yes, I see the appeal as Indiana Jones. Yes, honey. Rip that shirt, fight that fight, cut that bridge, do whatever you want. I am watching Harrison Ford.
You call him Dr. Jones.
And it's interesting because, like you said, yes, Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, like obviously they created a character that is
They love
not Karen
him.
Allen, and they want someone different for Temple of Doom. They wanted a funny singer who's totally out of her
Oh, yeah,
element. And
Millie.
I do agree that Willie, yes, she kind of is just sort of a damsel in distress all the time. However, she has some fun moments. She punches a guy when they're on that amazing roller coaster ride of the through the mine, in the
Wish that
thing.
the actual Temple of Doom roller coaster was that dude, like
I
that good.
know,
He's
yeah. So wait, where is that ride?
in it's in Paris. It's called Indiana Jones and Le Temple du Peril. It
Okay,
is
so it's
not good.
Disneyland Paris, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Because I'm like, why is that not a thing? Because it's a no-brainer. Again, okay, it's not that good.
No. It's not
No.
themed. It's just like it just has the name on it. There's not even the music. I mean,
Oh.
I
Oh, I
love
think
the
that's great.
music in this movie.
I love
I think
that.
it's better than any of the other ones. It's so different.
It gets deeper. It has some more levels or something or layers, right? Yeah, we go high, we go low. It's party time, but then it's like super creepy, culty.
Dirgy,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's like subterranean, like
Hmm.
and the fact that you can pick that out from the music, like I am very passionate about movie scores. I have not heard the last amazing movie score that I've ever heard was actually How to Train Your Dragon. I have not
Oh.
heard one that has made me feel anything since like like the mid 2010s. Like they
Oh,
just don't do that anymore. And this is like there's like chanting and stuff. I'm like, oh
oh
man, if you
yeah.
want to get me into something, like
Give me a
play some
chant.
chants, some percussion, some heavy drums.
Oh,
I'm
oh,
like,
I love a good
I'm
percussion.
all
Absolutely.
in.
An ominous percussion. Yes.
Yes.
Like, oh, I want to like while I'm walking around or like just sitting around, I want to like be a little worried. Like how am I gonna get out of this one? For me, the bugs and that eel snake and cutting it open with all those, like that is by far the most horrifying thing. If I
It
was
reminded me
younger, I'm
too much
sure
of the Python
other stuff would.
babies. Ugh.
Yeah. Oh, I believe it. I believe it. Yeah, that's way. And if I was there on set with them, oh my God, I just imagine so many of those actors must have been like, holy
Well, they
shit.
cut
Like,
a scene where there was supposed to be like more snake like action with Kate Capshaw,
mm,
and she was having a panic attack and was like, "Please, please, please, Mr. Spielberg, don't make me do
yeah.
this."
No,
And
thank
she
you.
begged him, and he's like, "You know what? It slows down the pace. We're not gonna worry about it. Like, it's fine." And
Good.
she's like,
Good.
"Thank
Yeah.
God."
Yeah. And honestly, thank God for all of us. We don't need more. We have just enough.
I liked movies when I was a kid where the kids sort of had an uprising. So once you
Oh
get to
yeah.
like the
Hmm.
kids finally like
Oh yeah.
getting freed and kind of being like, "Fuck
Yeah.
your palace."
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. That's, like,
That
so
was where the
amazing.
reward was for me.
Uh-huh. I totally agree, and I am right there with
Like
you. I love when, like, the kids regain their freedom or they get in control and they're tying up the adults or whatever, right?
well,
Yeah.
yeah, it was like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang or like Hook, where the kids sort of
Mhm.
like all kind of ganged up on the adults, and I was all about that as a kid. So
Oh, yeah.
that was kind of the reward that I got out of it. I was like, oh no, this is so a movie for you. You love this stuff.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
you
and
made
how
it through the gross
spooky
stuff.
and how sad. It's both scary and sad that, like, all the kids from this village, like, disappeared. They're gone. Like,
Right.
yeah, that's dark. That's,
Well,
like,
and
really messed up.
even the guy,
Yeah.
which I love him and I love his laugh, like, the village elder,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I don't know his name, but,
Mhm.
like, they found him and he didn't speak any English, and I
Wow.
think that they said that the pauses in his speech patterns were just, uh, literally they were feeding him lines. I'm like, "He
Oh.
did such a good job," and, like, I mean, him on the riverbank was freaky, so you knew it
Mhm.
was gonna be creepy, and then getting to the village and then finding out all the kids are missing, like, it was scary, and,
Mhm.
like, even just the tableau of the village, I
Mhm.
enjoyed spending time in those spaces. Like,
Mhm.
okay, they go from the village to the jungle, and then in the jungle, there's that, like, shrine that has all the fingers on like, the sliced off
Yeah.
fingers. Like,
Ooh.
it's cool stuff that, like, I love the atmosphere of it, and I
Yeah.
think that's
Uh-huh.
where this movie succeeds because it's, like, a lot of desert in
Yeah.
the other movies or,
Mhm.
like, just, like, European streets, and people are probably gonna be like, "What's wrong with you? There's all these, like, great
Yeah. Oh,
locations."
of course, but you can really feel the locations in this one. You can feel how wet they are, how
Mm.
sweaty, how
Yes!
humid, right?
Yes,
Mhm,
and,
and then,
like,
like, when
especially
they're underground and, like, the
yes.
fire, like, you just feel all those temperatures in this one.
Well, and the level of detail, if you look at the drums, there's, like, horrible faces, like, in the drums when
Mm.
the guy is
Oh, I don't think
beating
I
them,
noticed.
and,
Ooh.
like, just the giant idol of Kali is amazing. That whole
The
space,
set.
even when they're walking up to
Oh,
it, there's this amazing shot of them after the bugs and everything, where they're coming through the tunnel, and they can hear the chanting, and it's red, and
yeah.
the way that the stalagmites, which one is which?
One of them. One of
The
those
ones that
stags.
hang down,
Yeah.
they look like teeth, like it's like a maw,
Oh. Mhm.
and so I always liked that visual, and then going through into like, it opens up with that, like, zoom shot of,
Mm.
like, we're looking throughout the cavern and seeing all of, like, the thuggy cultists and
Yeah.
the giant, idol at the back where they have the guy, all
Yeah.
hooked up before they rip out his heart, like,
I
I
know.
loved all of that, and I do have intrusive thoughts sometimes when I'm in tabletop pose when doing yoga where I'm like, "Oh, la, 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 la." I will go and I'm like, "I don't know, I don't know." Like, I
Oh
will
my
in my
god.
head, I'm like, I feel like I'm doing the chant from Temple of Doom.
I know, it's really amazing, and, it's kind of a little Wizard of Oz, with, like, them kind of looking at the witch and the Winkies and, all that, like, so it's fun to see
Yes.
just, like, previous iconic film royalty, like, in that same vein, you know?
You know how to fly, don't you?
No, do you?
And what I love about this movie is just when, we have so many great set pieces, whether they're the great set design or, everything from the
Absolutely.
plane crashing to then they're in the water and they're like in the snowy hills or whatever. Like there's just always something next, like you were saying. And
Yeah.
after we have this big, the heart stuff and Indy gets possessed and now, and the roller, there's that like big rolling thing that, oh, I hope
Which
Indy's not
that
gonna get
guy,
flattened,
um
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
so that guy, again, kind of in, like, iffy territory, that was the
Yeah.
guy, I can't remember his name, but he was the big beefy Nazi, from the first one. He's
Oh.
literally in brown face, which is, like, not great.
Oh, yeah, that's not great. Hey, we gotta bring it up. Interesting. I didn't realize he was already in the the previous movie, but he's just back as a different character in brown.
Yeah, so they actually cast him. Lucas, in particular, liked to cast this actor, and I'm really kicking myself that I cannot remember his name right now.
That's all right. We'll figure it out.
We'll look him up.
Yeah.
But it's like
Wow.
he's just, I think he's like either English or Scottish, and he was in Willow. He played General Kale too. So like the guy with the skull mask. So he was a regular player in that. Like, you know, the Lucas universe.
Yeah.
And, you know, they always found a place for him, but he was like the big Nazi that gets chopped up by the helicopter in the first one. So this was kind of a redo of that. They kind of called back, like when he's at the top of the hill before they go on the bridge, and he's looking for his gun. They call back to a lot of stuff, but I didn't find it cheesy because it was very brief. It wasn't a direct rehash.
Is it Pat Roach? Does that
Pat
mean
Roach?
Okay,
That's
yeah.
it.
Yeah, this big
Pat
bald guy.
Roach.
Yep. Oh yeah, Willow.
And is he English
funny.
or is he Scottish?
Let's see, where is he from? IMDb says born in England, Birmingham, England. Yeah.
Okay, so he's English.
funny.
He's just like this big beefy dude that they used to cast in, like, you know, just kind of intimidating roles. Yeah, so I liked that they brought him back.
Right. Maybe
and it wasn't until later that I'm like, you know what? And I looked it up and I'm like, oh, that didn't age well.
Yeah.
Who I believed, like, I guess Amrish Puri, who played Mola, like the main big bad, I guess like it was like a thing. They had him shave his head for the role, and like he never played a villain before, and then all of a sudden, like, he was only playing villains. He became a really popular villain in Bollywood, and I'm like, I could not picture him as like a hero or a sidekick or anything but a villain after seeing this movie. He was so good.
Yeah.
I believed 100%. And he sold it. Like, I wonder if this movie is why I'm so like fascinated and terrified by like cults, because he takes the religious extremism. Like, he's like, we're gonna get rid of all the gods, and then they're only gonna worship Kali. Like, you know, I believed it. He was very intense, very scary.
Really great casting. Yeah.
If there's anything I can take away that I believed out of the movie, I'm gonna give Amrish Puri props. Mola is one of my favorites.
We got company!
Really great. Yeah, absolutely. He's a great villain. And even at the end, when, you know, they're hanging by like whatever's left of the bridge, and he's got the hand, and what does Short Round say? Like, protect your heart, protect your heart. And I was on the edge of my seat because I hadn't really seen that part before. And I was like, oh my God. Like, obviously he's not going to die, but I'm like, yeah, what's going to happen? Protect it, get him off, you know? So
and I wish they had explained more what he was evoking. Like when he was like, you betrayed Shiva, and then the rocks just start glowing, and I'm like, I have no context.
yeah. I'm glad I'm not because I was like, okay, I must have definitely missed a line, because the rocks are glowing and then they're like on fire, and that like leads to his death, and I'm like, okay, I don't really know, but it's still really cool. So,
and again, that's why I'm like, I'll just let it go. They're just trying to, like, nobody else really knows what's going on, so we're just kind of in the world with them, and I'm fine with that. Like, I don't need a ton of exposition, but it would have been nice to have a little more. I can live with it.
I'll give you that.
This one!
If the occasion calls for it!
Trust me! It calls for it!
And it's funny. I wonder when they filmed the opening scene, because he was still like, he's like, and like he's doing George of the Jungle noises when he's running. And even in the fight with like the guards towards the end, like the guard mummies.
I love that.
He's like, he does that same like monkey noise. Like, he can't shake it. He can't shake it.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Yeah, because I had forgotten about the boy in the sequel, who I remember is super cute. I don't think he really went on to do much else, right? But it's definitely like maybe he's around 10 or 8. Like, there's definitely a time jump for sure.
Yeah, so there's actually, I looked it up because it was bothering me so much. I watched it the other night. And literally, other than the bus chase scene, which I like, There's so
Yeah.
many things that bug me about The Mummy
So fun.
Returns. I could
Oh,
tag that on at
okay.
the end.
'Cause I have some friends that will probably make little cameos that love Mummy Returns. So would you say, yeah, you're more you like the original Mummy more
I
than Mummy
like the
Returns?
original, but it's
Yeah.
because I'm a purist and I can kind of tack
Mhm.
that on at the end when we wrap up because
Okay.
like so much of what is established in this movie is done away with in the sequel. Like,
Mm,
for
mhm,
instance, Jonathan learns
mm,
nothing. And I understand
mm,
that was probably the intent, but he is like deceptively capable. And
mm.
I feel like he should have had some growth and he had none.
Ah,
So there is some stuff
yeah.
that like I had beef with. It was so startling to see how thin her eyebrows were in The Mummy
Mm,
on the big
mhm.
screen. I was like, oh my
Yes,
god,
I
they did
agree.
this to
I was
you.
like, yeah, I know, it was a different
But
time.
I have a picture that I did that to myself, and it was a horrible time. I only have Gwen
Yeah.
Stefani and Drew Barrymore to
Mm,
blame because
mhm,
I did it too.
mhm.
And so, like,
And
it
those
worked for
2
the
are yeah, were major thin eyebrow
Drew
girls. You're right.
and
Uh-huh.
Drew and Gwen were at one point were literally just drawing them on.
Yeah.
So it was bad. But
Oh.
like it was for the time period fine and then, it worked for the 30s because that's what people did. They had the
Mhm,
real thin movie star brows. It worked.
mhm,
But it was a relief in the sequel to see that they let her grow her eyebrows back. But all the clothing was kind of like too modern. She had a too modern
mm,
hairdo. And
mhm,
then like one of the things I loved about this is that they let her be herself. She
mm.
was like brainy and wasn't she when she's telling him while drunk it's like I'm not an explorer or a gunfighter, like she is proud of being a librarian and knowing stuff and
Yeah,
being smart, and she ends up saving the day just by having the knowledge in which to do so. And
exactly.
I
Mhm.
thought that the sequel kind of threw that out the window where they're having her do like backflips and stuff. And I'm like,
Mm,
when would
yeah.
she have learned this? And even when they're
I do
explaining it
love her
away,
fight with Anak Sunamoon. I do remember I was like, "Oh," but
it
yeah,
it's
maybe
pretty
not.
iconic because it was like, a big moment in the movie.
Yeah.
But
Uh-huh.
like, I got
Maybe it doesn't make the
problems
most
with it.
sense. Yeah.
Well, and again, it's like it's a slapdash rehash, is
Mhm.
how I refer to it. They are
Okay.
just rehashing the big beats in the sequel, and one of those is like, oh, we're gonna have another girl fight. When
Yeah.
she's being chased by Nox Moon, now she's gonna have like the upper hand because she now has visions, and she's
Oh,
reaching into
right, the
her
vision.
mother's like Egyptian heritage, and she once was Nefertiri, a princess. Like it was
Yeah.
just, it's a little hackneyed and stupid. And I enjoy in this movie that she didn't have to be anyone that she wasn't. And
Mhm.
I feel like in the early 2000s, you couldn't be a lead in an action movie or just be a woman in any movie if you weren't like physically tough like a dude.
Mm,
Like
mhm.
I feel like
Yep.
Fast and Furious drove onto the scene and it was like everybody's supposed to be like Michelle
Mm,
Rodriguez. No hate, she's amazing.
you're
I
right.
love her.
Yeah.
But
Uh-huh.
like you have your role. And then like what about people like, me who related to
Right.
Evie? I'm not like going out and going like bare knuckle boxing anybody. Like
Yeah.
I could probably read a book and figure out how to save the world. Like it's more
Exactly.
attainable.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that I like, that they had to work together as a team. So Jonathan uses
Yeah.
his wits, she uses her brains, and then they got Rick as the tank. He's
Yeah.
using his brawn to kind of like, uh, hold Imhotep at bay. So
Yes.
yeah, that's
Oh.
one of my biggest beefs
Mm.
with the sequel, is like kind of
Yep.
taking that away from her.
Like you were saying, it's such a great gateway to spooky stuff and horror
Yes,
because it's not really scary. Like we said, there are a couple like, ooh, I got like the heebie-jeebies like with Mr. Burns, but it's overall
that was
you
terrifying to me
that was
when I
terrifying,
first
but like
watched it.
that's really the most scary, I would say, of the movie. Would you agree?
Uh
Or no?
I think that when upon first watch, when they have the pressurized salt acid and the digger is like,
Oh,
"Ah,"
I had forgotten about that.
that
Yeah,
scared
that's
the shit
hardcore.
out of me.
Uh-huh.
And that was another moment where I'm like, "Are we okay? Should I
Mhm.
continue? Like,
Oh, yeah,
am I
that's a
gonna be
hardcore
okay?"
moment. Mhm. And, I just wanna shout out unrelated, but I just wanna shout out, I totally forgot that the old nice man that flies them in the helicopter during that
Oh,
big another
Winston.
Winston,
I
another
love him.
really epic, like, iconic moment in this movie is when Imhotep can
The
sort of like channel
face.
his face in the
Yes.
sandstorm, and I just remember that was all over the trailers and like how awesome, right?
And
And
then
he's
he
doing all that.
smiles and,
Yes.
yeah,
And it's so
devours the
it's
plane.
and it's really great equal parts like fun and like kind of silly, but like really exciting, but also like twisted, because then he's there doing the motions but I just want to shout out Winston because I totally forgot about him and I forgot that he dies trying to
He
help
dies,
them.
but he went down like, again, going back to Indiana Jones, I think he literally says fortune and glory,
Mm.
and he's like, "Now I'm just rotting of boredom and booze,"
Yeah.
and, it was perfect for him. Again, that neat little button, it's like, "Okay,
Mm.
Winston's, like, ready to check out, we're gonna give him an epic death,"
Mhm.
and,
And it's
yeah,
it's like a sad one too, like, they, like,
it's
look at him, and they're like,
sweet,
"Oh." Yeah,
bittersweet,
like, he helped yeah, so I just had to shout him out because it's kinda
and then he
random,
disappears in quicksand.
Yeah, exactly, then it's like, "Okay,
Steven
well,
Summers, quicksand for everyone.
quicksand."
I remembered my Evil Dead tie-in. So Army of
Oh,
Darkness,
yes.
like at the end when they shot that, there was when he's fighting all the priests, which are also that was something that scared me
I
too.
love
When
that.
they're like,
Oh, I love that like and again, going back to my thinking with Temple of Doom, just kinda when you think the mummy's starting to kinda come to a close, it's like, "Oh, no, we got a whole battle with
nope.
these mummy zombie priests," like, oh, it's so great. Yeah.
And then they bring an Moon back from the
I
dead. Like
know. I had forgotten
it's
that, yeah.
just
It's
yeah.
that thing
So
in screenwriting, there's the all is lost moment, and that's that, and it's so fun to, like, really clearly see that on screen where it's like, "Okay, we're almost at the end, and ooh, all is lost, and, like, bad shit is happening everywhere, how are they gonna"
everybody to
So it's just
everyone,
fun
yeah.
to see, like, that clear moment there, like, before we're really wrapping it up,
It kind of reminded me that scene in particular when
Mm,
and even when pulling in, like, the soldier mummies, the
yeah.
guards, it was like Jason and the Argonauts or, like,
Mhm.
Army of Darkness, where
Mm.
it's kind of like a skeleton army that they're fighting, and I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
you know what? That's why all of these are kind of, like, in my wheelhouse." It
Uh-huh.
was
You're so
that
right.
same kind of, battle with the
Yeah.
undead, and it was so cool how they shot that. Again, the special features are so good. Um, like, you can watch they storyboarded it, and they're like, "Okay, Brendan, you have to do this, that, and the other thing, and this is what we're gonna put in." And so
Yeah.
they had him like, they choreographed a fight, and, like, he's
Uh-huh.
using the sword as, like, a baseball bat at one point, like, when he's, like, hitting the head and the head
Yes.
comes towards the screen and stuff. All of
Amazing.
that was pre-choreographed and storyboarded, which is amazing. And then they
Wow.
animated over top of him doing all of his little like it looked like he was dancing. Like he's like full Gene Kellying it around the slab where Rachel's just like, ugh. And
Wow.
yeah, like it was so cool to watch that. But
Oh.
when watching that recently, I'm like, oh, Army of Darkness, like
Mhm.
100%. The other thing that has staying power for me is just some of the lines and how they're said. I said this before, it's like a sense
Some
memory
great
where
lines.
I can like
Yeah.
hear it, but how they're delivered, like when Jonathan's like, "Oh, what is that god awful stench?" And then he smells the warden coming down the rope and he's like, "Oh."
Yep,
Just,
yep.
like, the fact that it can still make me laugh or when they throw a chair at Benny and he
Yes.
just goes down, like,
Uh-huh.
there's certain things that are just it's so good.
I wrote down so many lines when I was sitting there in the theater. It's crazy. Like, oh, yeah, going back to Drunk Evie, what is a place like me doing in a girl like
Doing a girl
this?
like this.
I remember as a kid, I thought that was so funny, right?
Oh
And
my
I mean,
gosh.
the closing line, well, not the closing line, but the line before Imhotep is kind of sucked into that pool of souls, which is so cool,
Yes,
at
death
the
is only the
end.
beginning.
Death. Yeah, because he says that,
Yes.
and then Evie translate death is only the beginning. It's like what a great line. Oh, it's so good.
Yes. And
So
it's
good.
like, I mean, and even then you think the movie's over and then everything starts crumbling down because of Benny's hubris. And then you'll
Yeah.
get yours, Benny, another foreshadowing.
Yeah,
Where
Benny,
he
ooh,
gets
bleak.
his
That is
lead
like,
gets him
yeah.
eaten alive. Like it's
Mhm.
just everybody, and even Evie says it's like evil little fellows like you always get their comeuppance, always.
Mm.
Like
Mm.
it's
Yeah.
like it's perfectly buttoned up. And I do feel bad for Kevin J. O'Connor. He always plays like some sort
He
of
always,
like
yeah.
gross
The
schlubby. I mean,
uh-huh.
the man sandals and the haircut they had him in were just terrible. When
Yep.
he's like pulling out all of his medallions.
Oh my god, yes. Oh, I love that scene. I'm so glad I forgot about that. Trying
Oh
to,
my god.
fend off the mummy
Yeah.
and like, yeah,
Cha cha
exactly.
busa buddha
Oh my gosh, Greg
like
just totally scared me. I'm so sorry. I just got so freaked out because I'm in the basement. Oh my god, I just totally got freaked out. I'm so sorry. My husband just got home and is looking at me and shining a light on his face, and I just see this face looking at me in the window as we're talking about Kevin J. O'Connor. Anyway, sorry
oh
everyone.
my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
That moment in particular actually reminds me of when we were on our senior trip and we were actually out to dinner and I brought it up with her and she's like, oh no, I totally remember doing it. So Katrina, our
Yeah.
friend Katrina, she when we were in line, she had like a million necklaces on and I think she had a Buddha in the middle. And so we were in line for the Tower of Terror and she lifted up, she's like, chow chow Buddha Buddha out of nowhere. And
Oh
then
my
it
god.
started, I brought it up, we were out for tacos last week when I
Oh
was up
yeah.
north.
Yeah.
And we just brought it up at the table, and everybody had a different line. And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, four, I only want four. Like, just random quotes. And I'm so
Oh my
glad
gosh.
it's not just me. I felt
Yeah.
seen.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
and
the Buddha thing, that's like a deep cut because that's like not a
deep
memory
cut.
that like,
Or
you
like
really think
ordering the
of.
camels. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
nobody remembers that part.
Yeah. That's
So it's
so
like
funny.
I enjoy that other people like are
Yeah.
able to actually get the references.
The way Jonathan just does that, it's so funny. It's very memorable for me. And I always,
Yes.
whenever I hear Imhotep, I'm like,
Again,
Imhotep. Yeah.
with his wits, he was
Uh-huh.
able to like,
He blends
kind of
right in.
weasel his way out of the situation.
Mhm.
Like I love the fan theory about Jonathan that like when I read a fan theory the one time that he was actually in the Great War, which is why he's kind
Mhm.
of a drunken a layabout because he's got like PTSD.
Mm.
And so that's why he's like, again, deceptively capable. Because he does know how to handle a gun. And
True.
that he's like, he just would rather not. I like that theory because when he's like, oh, I've seen worse when they're like, facing off and
Yep.
pointing the guns. He's like, yeah, me too. And Rick's like, what? He's like,
Rick's
oh,
like,
yeah.
"What?" Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Uh-huh.
I have. Yeah.
And it's just kinda like left there. You're right. Yeah, that is an interesting theory. I like that.
He turns me into a mummy, you're the first one I'm coming after.
If I'm being honest with myself, I wanted
Mm.
to be Evie when I was a kid. Like she's who I
Oh,
wanted to
yeah.
grow up to
I could see
be.
that. Yeah.
But unfortunately, I think I've become Jonathan. Because I'm like, I would just rather not be in the desert. There's like snakes, scorpions, the undead. If like Oded Fair showed up with his beautifully conditioned hair and was like, leave this
Yes.
place or die, I'm like, oh, leave with you. Leave
Yeah,
with
it's
you.
like, "Okay,
Like,
you
I'll
take me
go.
back to the bar. Let's go
Take me a cocktail.
shopping," right?
Take me with
Uh-huh.
you. Get me a cocktail. Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. He's
If I'm
I
being
hear you.
honest with myself.
Oh, yeah. He's um, a very fun vibe that I feel like suits a lot of us for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I am
Mhm.
ready for a sequel.
It could be so fun to see them together again, older. I guess their son would be, I don't know how old he would be, but he would be, you know
His son will be
yeah.
in their 40s. They'll be in their
Yeah.
50s. It's
It'll be Glenn
fine.
Powell and.
Oh, no. Absolutely not.
Yeah, we'd have to figure out who would play their son now. Hmm.
Who's a blonde British guy? Or even Australian. I'll go, like, I will even accept Australian.
Could it be like the younger Hemsworth, or is he too old?
I feel like
or-
he's even too old because now he's
Yeah.
Geralt of Rivia. He's replaced Henry
Mm.
Cavill in The Witcher. So it's like, I feel like
Yes.
he's moving towards getting a little bit more grizzled. I think we still need someone who's a little fresh of face.
Yeah. I'd have to think about
That's a
that. I don't know.
toughie.
All I can think of is Jacob Elordi.